Hello, my friends. I'm just looking down here at the time to make sure it's actually recording, but hello. So this video is just going to be a little chat about this year's Reader's Studio 2019, which I returned from Monday. Today's Wednesday now, so I've had a few days to think about it. And what I'm going to do, I know people are curious. I did post a picture on Instagram, but I'll sort of show you some of the loot that I picked up. But I also just wanted to talk more about the experience as well because it was really great. So this was my second time at the Reader Studio, and in many ways it felt sort of like the first time was like my introduction, my dipping my toe into the water. I definitely felt very sort of insecure and internal last year. Although I did meet some great people face to face finally, and that really helped make this whole experience really great. So I got to hang out with my great friend Liz, who lives not far from here. We actually drove together. Well, she drove. I baked muffins in thanks for that. But she was driving there, so I went with her, and we had great tarot divination themed discussions all the way to New York. And it's about 3.5 hours or so with traffic. And I got to spend time with the amazing Veronica Jude while we were there, and Lisa from Mindful Tarot, who I'm so happy to have met face to face finally. And I got to chat with all kinds of luminaries in the world, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But it was such a great experience this time, because I definitely felt a little bit more like I wasn't uh, a wallflower, or as much of a wallflower as I usually am. It was a lot of fun to have had last year, to meet some folks a little bit, and then this year to like remember them and then feel more comfortable. And that's sort of how things go for me, is it usually takes me a time or two to feel good anywhere. That's just how things go for me. So the first day, this was the first year they did this, and it's not apparently going to be the last. So up until the last few years, or up until this year, the first day of the conference was sort of a separate individual conference called Tarot and Psychology, and that was something you could, or you could do or not, or you could do that only and not do the Reader Studio. But this year they decided to change things up, and they did Divination Day, and that was a whole lot of fun. So we had 3 workshops that day. Rhina George did a great Lenormand workshop, and we used her deck for that, and it was a lot about using the symbols, and it was actually, it was sort of like a boot camp in Lenormand, which if you follow me at all, has been an interesting journey. It just doesn't come naturally to me as it does for other people. And it's interesting, I've talked about this before, Sibylla does sort of come a lot more naturally to me, and Lenormand or Lenormand, I never know how to say it, is a bit more of a struggle. But I did get some decent readings out of it, and a lot of the stuff that you do, you practice with a partner, and so Liz, who was my partner a lot of the weekend, did some good stuff too. So that was the first workshop. And I don't really have anything to show about that, but it was definitely a lot of fun. And she really, she knows what she's talking about, and she has a great sense of humor and a great personality, and that just made the workshop so much fun. And then I can't remember the order of things. I think the second workshop was the charm casting workshop, and the order doesn't matter much, but so Carrie Paris did a workshop, and I ended up buying. So she's the creator of the Magpie Oracle and a couple other things. And so she created the Milagro Oracle, which is a charm casting kit. And I really like, in fact, Liz did a reading for me the night before with another oracle that she had created, called the True North, which is sold out. And I said, if you ever bring that back into print, I think it's a really good idea. But she did this. So it's a bag of charms based on Milagros. And, I'm not going to take them out because it's a bag of charms. But so the fun thing was, you can't see my fingers over it here. There's this heart charm. I never can make this. Can you see that? Derp, right there. So it comes in this tin, in this little bag. So there's this heart charm, and that was a charm that my partner drew for me in one of the readings about what I was going to get out of the weekend, and it was about as great a an omen as possible because the weekend really did make me fall in love with what we do all over again, which is so great. So there's the charms, and then there's a charm casting cloth, and I have it sort of up sideways here. It's a cool system. Now the interesting thing, peekaboo, the interesting thing about all of this is I don't want to talk too much. I said this last year too. It's like you want to sort of share what the experience was like, but you don't want to give away someone's intellectual property. But it was a great, fun oracle reading that we learned using a combination of the charm casting and tarot. And so we did a great, a really sort of in-depth reading for ourselves using pre-selected charms that we selected actively, and then also things that we selected randomly, as well as cards that we selected. And if I remember to do so, I'll show you a picture of my reading, just because it involved a lot of cards. Sorry, I'm just trying to fold this back up. So I really liked that. I had never had any experience with charm casting prior to this weekend, and that the night we got there on Wednesday night, Liz did a reading for me, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I liked that a lot, and I will definitely be doing this reading with folks in my life. And it's very interactive, and I think that it's very tactile and really cool. And it was part reading and part intention setting. So this kit, you can get it on her website. It's not cheap, no lies there. We did get a little discount on it as attendees, but I really do like it, and I think if you want to splurge and you want to experiment with it, I think it's really cool. So then the workshop after that was a crystal ball reading workshop, which again, something crystal ball gazing. I don't know how you want to refer to it, but something scrying is something I'd never really had any experience with. And so similar to the charm casting workshop, we had to have something to work with. So Heather Lee Navarro, who is the workshop leader for the scrying workshop, she provided everyone at the workshop with a crystal ball that you could then buy if you wanted to. So I chose this one. This was the one that was handed to me, but I chose to buy it. It's very clear, and the reason I actually chose to buy it was because it was sort of a souvenir of the weekend. It wasn't super expensive, but also it was really beautiful. It's hard to see, but there's these gold flecks inside this very clear quartz. And the way that the lighting in the hotel, and there's like a little hematite ring that it sat on, so it could stay there. So we practiced a lot. Now I'm not going to lie and say, oh my God, it was like the whole world opened up to me. It wasn't easy. I also think that it's for me. Some people seem to have really chatty experiences with it. I don't necessarily seem to have access to things like that as easily as other people do. But it was fun, and it's very meditative, and I found that really relaxing. And as I was sort of looking and gazing into the crystal ball with sort of soft focus, I did start to see like shapes and things emerging. And I didn't really talk much about it in the discussion afterwards, but I did. I did have an experience of it's sort of like a magic eye thing. Now, I wasn't really able to connect that to anything, but it was still pretty cool. So I did buy the crystal ball in part because consumerism and just because it was a fun experience. So that was Divination Day, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot. I have to say at the end of that first day, it was like, wow, okay, that's day one, and the Reader Studio hasn't even started yet, so we've still got 3 more days. But at the end, I was grateful that I had gone to that day because, it's like there's never enough. There's always more you want to learn and do. So that was Divination Day, and I loved it. I loved the idea of having unusual or different techniques that are out there, but that you're not necessarily that aren't necessarily getting the attention that tarot gets or even Lenormand gets. And so they're going to do it again next year, and they have some great teachers who are going to do some interesting mediumship workshops and things like that. So I'm not sure if it's on their website yet, but they'll have information about the dates and the workshop leaders on the Tarot School website, and I definitely hope to go again next year. So then the workshop leaders for the Reader Studio itself, there's 3 main master classes. And the leaders this year were Ethany, George Corey, and Sasha Graham. And the only person I actually didn't get to chat with was Sasha Graham. But George I had met last year, and he's just the funniest and loveliest human being. And he did an amazing workshop, an amazing spread, which he calls the Peter Pan spread, about finding your purpose in life. And it was great. It was fantastic. I love the spread that he came up with and that we worked on, and I'm definitely going to be using it on people. I don't feel like I can share all the details here because it's really his work, and I don't know if he'll put it up on his website or whatnot. But I think it's a great spread, and it's a great reading. And again, there's an interactivity to it that I really liked a lot. And he's just really funny and very dry and but also very kind, and I got to have lunch with him and chat, and I just love listening to folks who are smart talk about what they do well. So Ethany's workshop was about tarot muses. Again, she actually did mention she's got a project she's working on which will make her tarot muse presentation from this weekend more public. So I won't say a whole lot about it. She'll, I would imagine, talk about it on her channel at some point. But very powerful work there too. Very intentional and about setting intentions. All of the presenters this weekend too, interestingly, all talked about money and charging for readings, and having sort of the self-respect that says, if you are a pro, then you want to charge what you're worth. And that came up as a theme a lot. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot too. So very serendipitous there. And then Sasha Graham's workshop was this great magical mandala. All of these workshops kind of work together really seamlessly, and partnering with folks during the work. The whole weekend sort of felt like a really long, lovely reading for me, and because themes kept coming up in all the practice readings we did for me, and it was a lot about kind of owning your place, or my place in this tarot world, and sort of what's next for me as a reader or a teacher or a writer, and It got me thinking a lot about what I should be focusing on next, and maybe taking myself, not taking myself more seriously, but I guess taking more, paying more attention to the business side of what we do for in my life. So I haven't parsed it fully, and I'll continue to figure that out as time goes on. But it was great, and what was also great was that for part of Saturday, Ethany was my partner for George's workshop and for Sasha's workshop. So we hadn't ever really had a whole lot of time to connect, and she's just hilarious and funny and fun and smart, and we have similar, social justice points of view and similar points of view about diversity and representation, and she was one of the earliest YouTubers that I had seen in the tarot world talking about representation in tarot, etc. So it was great to connect. And I got a copy of her book, which is Emerging into the World, and I haven't started reading it yet because I got another book that I bought first. But she has a video up about this book now, and I'm so excited to read it. I just love her voice and her sense of humor and her practicality. And so this was another thing, and she signed it for me, which is so great. So while I'm talking about books, I also, if you don't follow Lisa from Mindful Tarot on YouTube, then you need to pause this, go to her channel and follow her, because I love her videos. So she and I had emailed back and forth last year, and we finally got to meet and sit together a little bit this year. And she's written this beautiful book, which I'm about a third of the way through so far, called Mindful Tarot. Again, both of these are published by Llewellyn. And this is a really nice approach to tarot. There's a quote. I shared it with a friend of mine last night because it felt really apt. But she talks a little bit in the intro about how we view our lives as something that needs to be fixed, and tarot as a way of... This is the second video I've made in 2 days where my computer has frozen in the middle of recording a video. Anyway, technology. Can't live without it. And yet. Anyway, she takes the approach that tarot, we look at our lives as something that needs to be fixed, and tarot as a solution. She asks us to consider the idea that nothing is broken and nothing is hidden. And this book is about approaching tarot from a mindfulness standpoint. I knew I was going to love the book because it starts with a quote from Walt Whitman, who's one of my favorite poets. And it just, if you watch her videos, you'll know that she's got a great, gentle presence, and this book has a similar quality to it. So these are the 2 books that I picked up, and it's just so cool to, know the people who made them. And I don't read as many tarot books as I used to, because what I don't need a lot of is more descriptions of the cards and their meanings, but these are both something I really love, which is kind of special topics in the tarot world, in the community of things that are specific and unique, and things that have a point of view that's more focused. So I'm really excited, really loving Lisa's book, and can't wait to read Ethany's, and I imagine that I'll have plenty of time to do that in the coming days. So the overall experience of like I said, the workshops altogether really became kind of a long reading, right from the first day all the way to the closing workshop, the closing session on Sunday. And I think, it was. I hate saying things like this because it sounds really pretentious, but it was a really nourishing experience. It really did make me fall in love again with tarot, and I had been feeling a little, not burned out, but just not, to be honest, I'd been feeling just sort of a little talentless lately, and this was like a good reconnection with what I love about what we do, and getting to do it so much for so many people, and to get great readings from people. It was refreshing, it was nourishing, it was a great palate cleanser, and I feel really excited now to get back to the work. So just so great. The people were so great, and I loved it. So what else can I say about it? Well, let me share you what else. So the next thing I'm going to say, I'm not going to show this. So we all know that if you follow Veronica Jude, which you have, if you're not, you should. She's been working on a deck for a while. It's she's called it a meme deck, although her thinking about it has evolved. And so she is almost done the process of the first phase. So she brought a couple prototypes of the deck with her, and so I bought one from her because she showed it to me. I promised that I would not talk much about this until she has it set and until the guidebook is done. So I'm not going to say too much about it. Other than that, I love it, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I think you're really going to love it, and when it's out and available, you need to get your hands on it, because it's a tarot deck. But it's got a very specific quality to it, and that quality, I think, is a great. It's definitely a great thing to use as like a beginning of the day pull, or when you need inspiration or a prompt. So it's got a lot of uses, and I love what she's done. But I won't show more than just that it's here, because I promised I would wait until she had everything set. So US Games gave us a gift, and we all got a copy of the Gil Tarot, which is cool. I have never seen this deck in person. It's really beautiful. Anyone who knows this deck knows what I'm going to say, which is that I probably won't use it much because there are keywords on the minors, and that is not my favorite thing because I find it an imposition. But beautiful deck and really popular for a reason. And thank you to US Games for sharing it with us. There's a swap table at the Reader Studio where you can put decks and books and other things that that aren't sparking joy in your life, in the hopes that they'll spark joy in someone else's life. So I probably got rid of about 20 maybe a little less, 20 or so decks that had just been languishing on the shelves, and that I knew I was never going to use. And I only actually picked up one, which is the Impressionist Tarot, just because it looked kind of cool. So the Impressionist Tarot, it's a deck that's all existing art, sort of repackaged, which is something I'm not the biggest fan of, but actually I looked through it and I was like, oh, this is cool. I can see using this. So I grabbed that, and it came with the guidebook as well. And then I won a raffle from, so there's a big raffle, and the prize that I got came from Al Juarez, and he made this candle, which I totally feels appropriate for me at this point right now. I don't know if you can read that. It says, my tarot readings are accurate, practical, and in high demand, and growing more and more every day, which I love. And then also a gift certificate for a reading with him. And then these really rad Himalayan salt lamps. It's like a string light with Himalayan salt. So that was super cool. So I won that. I never really win raffles, so that was fun. That's the big stuff. The last thing I'm going to say, I was actually really restrained in my purchasing this year. But last year at the Reader Studio, I brought only like 2 pit decks with me, and needed something a little more picture-based. So I bought the Japaridza on a whim, and that became a hugely used deck for me this year. And so I was sort of waiting for what that deck was going to be this year, 2019, and by Saturday or by Friday night, I hadn't really seen it. Like, there was lots of great stuff, but nothing was sort of like, come get me. And then Lisa de St. Croix, or Croix, I never know how to say I should have asked. This deck is not new, but she was there with her new Goddess deck, and she had copies of the Tarot de St. Croix, or St. Croix, which is her tarot deck. And I looked at it online on Friday night, and the first thing I did the first thing I did Saturday morning was get a copy of it, and I used it all weekend after that, and I have fallen head over heels in love with this beautiful, multicultural, beautifully painted deck in orange, beautiful orange tones for the borders. I love this back, this great sort of spooky back. I love it, and the cards. I can tell already, and I've been using it almost exclusively ever since I got back. Have been. Let me see if I can just show some. I love it so much. It's so rich, and I love there's not a card in here. Oh my god, look at this. There's a troll doll. That is like right out of my childhood on the 6 of Cups. Come on. I love it. It's got representation from across the world. It's got a lot of different and interesting approaches to the Rider-Waite-Smith, and like a good Rider-Waite-Smith edition, or like decks that I like, where it departs in interesting ways. So I love it. I am so excited that it's joined the collection. I really hope that you can't hear the landscapers outside, because they only seem to come around when I'm making videos, but I guarantee you probably can't hear them. So this is the Tarot de St. Croix. It's not new. It came out in 2013. Somehow, and I've known about it, but somehow I just never picked up on it. I never even really looked at it. And I thought, it's just another writer. I mean, it's not another Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's not. I mean, it's Rider-Waite-Smith based, so you should be able to use it, but gorgeous. I just can't say enough about how great it is. So that was a real great gift this weekend, was finding this deck. So, I mean, the thing, I'm not, conferences and parties and, networking, that's not my natural habitat. I'm not given to that as a general rule. But I'll say that there's something very welcoming and kind, first of all, about the Reader Studio, always, in my experience so far. And the people are really there because they want to be, and they're not interested in the hierarchy of, some imagined landscape of, who's a genius and who isn't, and who's a celebrity and who isn't. Everyone's there because they love this art form, and they're there because they want to share it. everyone from the presenters to the first time attendees, across the board. So it was just, I just am so glad that I got to connect with more folks this time, people whose work I've admired. Benabel Wen, I got to have a conversation with finally. Just like all these people whose work I've loved and admired for so long. I got to watch Drag Race with a bunch of folks. It was just like, it's so much fun. It's just such a great community, and there's not a lot of or any that I could tell sort of what's the word I'm looking for, like snottiness or snobbery or like clickiness. I didn't find that to be the case at all. So I recommend it. I know, it's gotten so popular, it's hard to get tickets to these days. It sells out pretty quickly, and for various reasons, it's not. They're not going to be opening it up for booking until the fall or late summer, I think. But it's so great. So I'm really thankful to all the folks who were there and who made it wonderful. And then, I guess, so another thing is, I didn't even think about this. On Sunday mornings, there is a series of what they call tarot incubators, which are really just sort of 90-minute conversations that you can join or not. But they ask for volunteers to facilitate them. And so I pitched one, and I ended up facilitating it. I called it, sort of in my salacious way, tarot for, no, what did I call it? Divination for Fun and Espionage, the case for using cards to spy on your loved ones. And if you watch my channel, that I actually am a fan of third-party readings, and I've done some videos about them. But the whole premise was that third-party readings can, and I've talked about this on my channel, can open us up to empathy for others. And so we had sort of a great conversation in a table, about 15 of us all gathered around and just talking about, where our boundaries are for third-party readings and when they're useful and when maybe they're not, and when it is spying and when it's not. It's just a lot of fun. So it was nice to get back to that facilitation part of my life, because that used to be my job and I haven't had to do it in years. So that was fun, and it made me... It reminded me how much I love facilitating conversations and talking about stuff we love about, and even made me miss training and teaching. So who knows, maybe there's some more of that in my future too. But yeah, it was just a lovely, lovely experience, and I had several readings all on a theme, and they all seemed to kind of hit me right here. And there were times where cards came up and I would just laugh because it was so like, of course. And then there were times where it was like, oh my God, like I never thought I would see that card come up in this context, and like just kind of crazy and cool and awesome people sharing their talent. So I think that's it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say without kind of giving away the store, and I really believe, if the presenters want to make their work public, then they can. I don't want to steal their intellectual property, but I will say that you should, if you're not aware of the presenters, then you should definitely make yourself aware of them, because they're great. And yeah, so that's my experience. It was fantastic. Learned a lot, took a lot home, had some great conversations, met some great people, got some great gifts and swag and stuff to read, and can't wait for next year. So I hope this was interesting and fun, and I hope you're doing well, and we'll talk soon. Be good.